Alrighty. Now the best race for any class in EverQuest is Dwarf. If you can be a Dwarf, you should be one because of the barrel roll. Alrighty, welcome back everyone. I am Blaze here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about what is the best race and class combination for each of the three main healer classes in EverQuest. Let's get to it. So we will be going over who should you pick if you go good alliance, who should you pick if you go evil, the starting areas, the starting stats, racial innates you should consider. And mind you that your faction and your starting stats really only matter in Classic, Kunark, and Velius. After that point, they largely become irrelevant. The first one we will be discussing today is the Druid class, which is good alliance only. From the poll I did on my channel, it was about even. Wood Elf got a little bit higher ahead, but it was about even between Wood Elf and Halfling. Now, in terms of starting stats, there's a tie for who has the best wisdom stat, basically who would have the biggest mana pool starting out in the game, which would be a tie between Wood Elf and Halfling. In terms of the highest stamina, how much hit points you would have starting out, it would be a tie between Halfling and Human. Out of all these four picks, some things to consider. Humans have the worst night vision out of all of these, whereas all the other races you could be Druid have better night vision. They have infravision. I personally think that Wood Elves have the best starting location because Greater Fade Arc is really in the center of everything. But Halflings, on P99 at least, this is not true on live, they have a little bit of an experience bonus, so they'll level a bit quicker. And Halflings are right smack dab in the middle of Intonica, which is convenient if you want to get from, say, Kanos to Freeport side a lot, if you want to go in between those. Also, Halflings have Sneak, which is really useful if you like to sell to merchants who don't like your faction. In the comments of that poll, some people were giving an edge to Halflings because they belong in my nightmares and hallucinations. Wood Elves seem to be more the lore appropriate one. There's a dislike for half-elves and the bell bottoms that they have. But in general, I'm going to agree with Vindavin here. I think Wood Elves have the best starting location, and their wisdom is tied top with Halflings, but Halflings have the better general stats. They also get the bonus of being short, and they have sneak. But I mean short, so you get wall hacks. And Halflings on P99 definitely because of the experience bonus. On live that you don't get that, but definitely on P99, I think Halfling is a no-brainer if you're going to go Druid. And the next one we will be discussing is Cleric, which can be both good, neutral, and evil. This one we'll be discussing the Good Alliance. So, out of all the races, actually High Elf was the highest ranked. And it makes sense why. Because High Elves have the highest base starting wisdom, so they'll have the biggest mana pool. They'll also have the highest charisma starting out, and they have a really good starting location in Greater Fade Arc. Some of the cons of them, though, is they do have the lowest strength, which can make it very difficult if you're wearing plate. Also, they're tied for the lowest stamina, so they won't be as survivable per se. But of the other choices, if you want to go Battle Cleric, Dwarf is definitely the best for Good Alliance. They're tied for second most on Wisdom. They have the highest stamina, so they can take the most hits. They also have the best strength out of any of the clerics. But their charisma is the lowest, so they're sort of a mixed bag. And their starting city in Caladim and being in Butcher Block is not that far from the best areas in this game to level up. And you want to mostly stick to, say, Freeport or Greater Fade Arc, in my opinion, on a lot of these servers. And on the poll, Dwarf was tied for number 2. Other choices you have for Cleric are Erudite and Halfling. Also, Human and Gnome are more neutral, but those are some other choices you have. Now, on Evil Alliance, you can go Dark Elf, Human, or Gnome. It's mainly the deity you pick if you go Human or Gnome. And Dark Elf was tied for number 2. They're tied with Dwarves. Now, Dark Elves, if you're playing Evil Alliance, they have the absolute highest wisdom for that side. They're tied for the second highest out of all possible races. But their stats otherwise are pretty lackluster in other regards. So some of the comments I liked on this, Ralim Samaj. I voted Dwarf as they seem like the perfect race for Wisdom. High Elf, Dark Elf, and Erudite each seem more like races for intelligence-based classes, more of your DPS caster classes. James B saying the human eye patch and blue Velius plate is untouchable. Yep. And Vindavin saying, having played a Dark Elf Cleric, the snare necklace is overrated. So yes, there are these specialty quests that you get being a certain deity and certain race as a Cleric. And one of them that's really sought after is the snare necklace that Dark Elf Clerics can get, but I guess it's overrated. It gets resisted a lot and it has a long cast. And Dark Elves, they do have the best night vision out of all these, which does help out. But in general, it's better to be good Alliance because most of the hub zones, you'll be kill on sight if you're evil. High Elves have the best pure caster stats, but their strength is low for a plate user. Dwarves are better for combat and better general all around for stats, but their charisma is harmful if you're trying to do lulls or say divine intervention. Halflings get sneak so you can sell to bad faction vendors. Erudites are meh. And humans, they get a really good starting location if you go for Freeport. But in general, I would pick High Elf if you want to go pure caster. I would pick Dwarf if you want to go combat. And I would pick Dark Elf if you're going to go anything Evil Alliance and you wanted the best night vision. And now the next one is the Shaman class. Now the only option if you want to go Good Alliance is Barbarian early on in the game. I do believe Vashir in the Luckland expansion is an option for Good Alliance, but at that point it's irrelevant what race you pick. Now Barbarians do have really solid strength, stamina, and wisdom. And stamina and wisdom matter a lot for the Shaman class. You want to have as much hit points as you can so that when you do cannibalization, you'll convert your hit points to mana. And then wisdom is, of course, your mana pool. And in this poll, actually, Barbarian was number 2 out of all the races. Almost tied with Troll. But if you're going to go Evil Alliance, which is the vast majority of the options here, you have Ixar, Troll, and Ogre. And overwhelmingly, Ixar won number 1. Ogre, surprisingly, was the lowest, which I wouldn't have bet. But in terms of Shaman, Ixars actually have the highest base wisdom, and Ogres have the highest base strength and stamina, and slightly higher wisdom than Trolls. Some of the best comments here being James B. I prefer Trolls, the most handsome race. But Ogre hands down in the solo department. Geared out, Ogre Shaman and Torpor can solo better than any other race class combo. But in raids, it doesn't matter. And that's true. So Ogres do have frontal stun immunity, which means that they won't be interrupted if they get bashed or something from the front. So if you want to solo, I think Ogre is the best one for Shaman. If you want to be Good Alliance, you really only can pick Barbarian here, but Barbarians have a pretty bad starting location in Hallis, and their night blindness is pretty bad too. And thank you so much, Vindavin, for a lot of these posts. I had no clue about a lot of these special clickies. So Troll, they don't have as many armor restrictions like Ixar. They get their hit point regen, which is the same as Ixar, and they can also worship Inneruk to get a snare necklace clicky, and with Mala it won't get resisted much. Did not know about that, so you could actually do a snare as a Troll Shaman. And in general, when you're Ixar or Troll, you'll get enhanced hit point regeneration so that when you cannibalize, so that you'll be able to cannibalize more. You'll be able to take more of your hit points and turn it into mana, which will help out a lot for downtime. So in general, I would pick Barbarian if you're going Good Alliance. It's your only choice, obviously. And if you're going to go for Shaman, I would say go Ogre if you're soloing. And if you're not concerned about soloing, if you're going to be grouping or raiding primarily, it's really a personal preference over Ixar or Troll. They both have the same hit point regeneration capabilities. Trolls will have the better starting stats, and Trolls also have a really solid starting area, but also Ixars have a solid starting area. I really think it's more personal preference here. If you're boxing though, I would definitely say Ixar, because you can be an Ixar monk with an Ixar shaman, and that is a classic combination. Monk and shaman is one of the best combinations in this game if you're two boxing. But thank you guys all for watching, and thank you all to the people who commented on this video. I really appreciate it and participated in the poll. See you in the next one.